Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Daniel Schneider, titled Adventurous Monster off of the album of the same name. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the album on Spotify here, got the Adventurous Monster right here alongside 6 other tracks, so 7 in total. We're going to listen through Adventurous Monster from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. I like that shifting bass line. Nice way to avoid the continual staircase. Additional lead layer. That was really tight. Great first impression to Daniel's work. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Daniel Schneider off of the Adventurous Monster album, the song also titled Adventurous Monster. In this section, I'm going to talk about a few of the things I liked about this track, as well as any applicable constructive critique. And then finally, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? So with it being an instrumental, we don't have any lyrics. And I think that's okay. You don't need to have lyrics in a song to tell a story. I think the instruments can do a lot of heavy lifting here. I get the impression from the overall sort of quote-unquote feel of it that it could be about a monster who is sailing the high seas. It has that kind of dun 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 dun, that kind of bounciness to it, like they're off on a mission somewhere rhythmically with the groove. We have twists and turns well structurally, which kind of infer a sense of quieter parts to the journey and then kind of louder parts there. So you really do get the feeling that this is more than just one kind of speed. This is a multi-flow situation. And the Adventurous Monster is willing to do whatever it takes in order to make the most of it. I think part of what works so well about this track is the amalgamation of different elements there, as well as the general sort of intensity, feel, and dynamic range of it. So what I mean by that is you do layer on parts after certain loops through of the main sort of like riff or kind of like set 4 or 8 bars. And I think that that's sensible because it lets the listener, hey, we might have more to come next. We might have something new, interesting thing that's about to occur. But for us to kind of do 4 of these iterations, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and for them to kind of reduce back to the bass and drums, infers a sense of self-awareness that we might be kind of putting things a little bit too early into the sort of like the high octane part, that we kind of want to allow the 214 to be a bit less predictable. Because then if you start getting used to it going up and up and up and up, you're in a situation where you might take that for granted. And we do that several times through the song. It kind of creates this interesting A-B dynamic there, where it makes the 2 minutes 14 of this track incredibly well proportioned. There's a familiar feel with the tempo, like the tempo doesn't change there. I've got a kind of chord note groove for most of it, percussion wise there. with various sort of eights and offbeat syncopated parts. But it's the kind of allowing for the percussion, I suppose, to be the dominant factor throughout the most part. Because you have drums or like claps or kicks or sort of hand patterns there, regardless of whether it's just the bass or all the strings and kind of like brass stabs and all that kind of stuff going on top. All the kind of like sort of synthy woodwinds, as well as the pads, and like there's just so many pretty kind of like epic sounding elements that are well considered in terms of the way they kind of come together within the frequency spectrum. So I feel if I was to sort of talk about a second thing outside of the way it's structured and the way things sort of niche together, through the use of like the kind of like the peaks and troughs of it, it will be the use of the percussion as a consistent layer to kind of let you know that you're always moving. That even if things change in how relaxed or intense they are, that we're still putting one foot in front of the other. And even if we start adding some 16th note kind of shakers or something like that in there for a bit of extra oomph, it's still, the groove is still the main focal point here. And typically tracks, they do need a focal point. If you don't have something for a listener to sort of follow along to, they can kind of get lost in the ether, and that can either be a good or a bad thing depending on how deliberate that is. But those subtle adjustments to the groove with the rhythm section there just kind of retain attention even in such a short track. And I think it's also the power of a good sort of main melody. That boom, ba ba boom, ba ba boom, ba ba boom. It's just nice to sort of like nod your head along to. You can follow along. It's very satisfying. It doesn't have any sort of like harsh chromatics or unexpected twists and turns. The other instruments, whether the woodwinds or the strings or the synths, they kind of layer on top of it and add further upper harmony to it, with the bass underneath just providing more of a ground bed alongside the groove of the percussion or the flow of that. It's just nice to have a kind of main musical idea outside of the rhythm section being sorted to provide a sense of personality within a piece. And when you sort of take it away and go back to basics again with the drums and the bass, and that's then reintroduced, it's satisfying because you're like, oh, I get it, we're back in this, cool, we can go up the roller coaster again. I think as well, the additional sort of like lead layer on top of the final part of the piece there, in that final section there, there's an additional kind of plucked lead there, almost like a kind of sitarish kind of tone there, and it arpeggiates, and it's just that extra little bit of glow in the upper range on top of everything else that's already been established. So we not only know how to create compelling sort of bass lines or main sort of riffs, but also how to sort of put other things on top there, like the brass stabs as well, for more of an effect kind of percussion or something like that. And to add the kind of the flutes or the woodwinds there, the kind of exotic sounding tones that provide more of a kind of, I suppose, an exotic feel, for less of a better word there. Like it makes it seem like you're going to a foreign land or something like that. And I kind of like that, how that ties into the whole adventurous part. So you've got different instruments completing different functions whilst again still niching together. And in the end, it just kind of reminds me of like a Pirates of the Caribbean motif, except without the swing, which I think, again, adventure. I don't know if that's a deliberate decision on their part, but nonetheless, I haven't necessarily given three specific things so much as a kind of a robust all-round praise to it. But I suppose if I was to summarize, it was the rhythm section in general, with the accenting of different parts of the main groove, as well as, again, the other rhythmic elements and additional sort of 16 shakers. It is the way the structure, the dynamic range of the track works with the peaks and troughs within that 2 and a bit minutes. And it's also the sort of like the main sort of like core melodies and how they're built upon by the other instrumental components within the mix. I thought they're all very positive, as well as how the individual textures affect the feel of it, and the minor leaning kind of still kind of sounds more like the Pirates of the Caribbean. I've got no applicable constructive critique for this one. I feel like it's a great sort of standalone concept. I think that I can listen to the title of it and kind of imagine someone going on an adventure, and I feel like it's pleasing enough to listen to, that in isolation it's solid. I would wonder how the rest of the album, from a general listening perspective, should I say, I would wonder how the rest of the album panned out, whether this was like the summation of everything that came before it, which is what we're building towards. Maybe the rest of the album is trying to sort of talk about why it's such an adventurous monster. But nonetheless, I feel like it being the final track on the album makes a lot of sense. You're just kind of accepting it for what it is, and maybe there's going to be an Adventurous Monster Part 2 where it goes on more and tries different genres or goes through different types of adventures. Either way, I enjoyed my time with the track. I thought it was very well thought out, and I don't think that we were lacking due to the lyrics. I feel like, again, I should probably quickly sort of talk about the studio production, because I feel like the production in general, things are nice and leveled, spaced out within the frequency spectrum. There's, again, dynamic range, nice and loud without pumping. I'm trying to sort of limit these kind of sort of videos to three things, but there's just a lot to appreciate here. And ultimately, I liked the kind of like flow and bump of it. Yeah, honestly, great first impression. And I would happily listen to more of Daniel Schneider's music. And thank you for watching my review of this track from my next name, Daniel Schneider, titled Adventurous Monster. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show him some love via their various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SBRX. Spiderhands out.